Tom, you're on theme tonight.
I am on team, finally.
How about
Oh, I
that?
like that. That's a good one there.
Although I never use them in the game, but
You use the nightstick, though, that's for sure.
I think Earthquake was my main guy that I always used.
Oh, geez. He did the little jump thing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You guys ready to dig into this thing?
Get it going. I'm ready.
Welcome to this episode of the Prestige-ish Media Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Lake, and with me, he's no stranger to nightsticks and hard time. It's Bird Ed Boggess. How's it going this evening?
Oh, glad to be here. I'm pretty excited, fellas.
And our other co-host is someone who wants to give Boss Man's daughter mouth to mouth. It's Tom Chan. Tom, how are you this evening?
Probably after 10 beers then.
Hey, we'll see how you hold up after 6. We're going to be covering Unreal Season 3, Episode 2, and the Boss Man episode of Dark Side of the Ring, Season 7, Episode 5. We're going to start with Unreal, though. Episode 2, I think it was The Last Time Is Now. Tom, initial thoughts and a rating.
I'll give it a 7.
Okay.
I liked it. A lot of inside stuff about the Cena's last match, I guess. Not the whole retirement tour, but his last matches. But it was pretty cool stuff about it. But I think it was more of him trying to take a little blame off Triple H too. But who knows?
Bird, your thoughts and a rating on The Last Time Is Now.
Sure. I like this week better than last week, and I liked episode 1 pretty well. I gave this one an 8, actually. So I thought it was well done. Laha mentioned that they kind of skirted over the Triple H deal there, which I kind of expected that, but they played it real well, and we got some talking points here that I thought came across very nicely.
Yeah, and I'm actually right in the middle of you two guys. I've got it as a 7.5. I obviously really like the Cena stuff, but I still think the season is playing really fast and loose with the times and what's going on. I really think they need like at minimum just like a month and day marker because they're going all over the place. I think for me it would be more effective if they covered a character per episode, but if they're not going to do that, at least give us a clue where the hell we are. All of us watch regularly, so I think we have a good idea, but it's almost more disorienting because we know we're not in the right spot. So to make this point, we start off with Cena's last 2 matches, but then we bounce back to the Punk stuff, which I think was in May off the top of my head.
I was confused about the timeline when they were talking about Punk too. It was like, is it going back to the beginning of their feud, but it was like at the end?
Yeah, it's just weird the way they're placing it without putting a timestamp on it, I think. And then specifically to this Thugonomics, Punkonomics thing, I thought that was one of the better Cena promos during his whole run, and they didn't cover that part of it at all. I'm okay with them covering the "I'm gonna miss you" line from Punk. I think I could tell when it was live that he said something that hit Cena, but yeah, I think that was actually one of Cena's high points as a heel, and if we're gonna on his heel turn, at least give the things that did go well about it. What did you think of all this, Bird?
I like that they brought back the Thugonomics. I thought that was really good, even in the old days and now. They kind of put a cap on that pretty well. I didn't actually know what Punk told him in the ring until we watched Unreal, so that was new what he actually said to him. And it seemed like, how could you not? Punk seems to have a whole lot of respect for Cena, but I can imagine not too many people don't.
Your thoughts, Mr. Tom?
Yeah, I didn't know Punk said those words to Cena live. I didn't really catch Cena's reaction live either, but watching the Unreal, that was pretty cool. I thought it was good overall, but the whole timeline jumping really confused me a little bit. So it was more of a second watch type of thing.
Yeah, I definitely noticed live that something was said, but that's me as the Cena historian. And I was just a little disappointed. I think the last real Cena Thugonomics thing we got was maybe a New York Mania, like he came out in Yankees gear, I feel like. But I
think it was maybe it's fake, but it wasn't. He did a Bray Wyatt thing.
Yeah, those two would have been like the last 2 appearances. I would have liked an appearance like on his last run, especially after he turned face. but we didn't really get that, which little disappointing. I was fine with the Punkonomics. Once again, I think that was one of Cena's best promos versus Punk, but once again, off the top of my head, I think that was like May-ish, which we last left off at WrestlePalooza, which was in September, and then
Right.
we're going into a lot of different things. Seth Rollins, in fact, injured, which we kind of knew. They cover the Braun Breaker spear. We see the buildup of don't f this up, you got to feed your family or everyone's family. I guess I can understand Braun being a little apprehensive, just feeling bad and everything. I thought this was, I'm sure you guys will remember this spot. There's that botch spear with Seth on the like outside of the ring. And I don't know what that was, but I was expecting that one because they built it up so high. The spear he delivered that they showed on camera was actually decent. I don't know if that was a different night or when, but there was definitely a spear that did not go as well as the one they showed in the ring. Do you remember which is which with that bird? But were you definitely thinking the same thing with the spear?
I was thinking outside as well, but again, date-wise, I'm not sure which one lines up. But for me, how they were going over that backstage, I thought was kind of neat. I'm not sure how much actual true pressure was on him or how much they portrayed for the show, but just everybody was all hands on deck, and what a moment it was for Braun. And I think he understood that. And Seth was just like, "Hey, bring it. I'm gonna be hurt. Come at me."
Do you remember that specific spear, Tom? And were you expecting the spear that we were all expecting?
I don't remember Spear being screwed up, but maybe it was like was it the camera didn't catch it quite well, I guess, maybe. But
There was one on the outside of the ring, and I thought it was when Rollins was injured too, because that's why I thought it looked weird. But he hit him right down the ramp, so he was running down the whole ramp, and it didn't look like Seth really took all of it. Could it have been
Yeah.
Mania, question mark? Or I don't know when it would have been, but it didn't look like Seth really took all of it. Maybe it's because this one he didn't want to take the next one as hard, especially with that full head of steam. But
yeah,
yeah, I think we're going to see more to come with this group because obviously, once again, triple spoiler alert, they all get injured. So we'll just
yeah,
kind
I
of,
forgot about Bronson Reed was part of the crew too.
yeah, I think in horror movies like in Aliens, for example, when they pick off one at a time, it used to be called 10 Little Indians. I don't know what it's called now because I assume that's not appropriate. But
Or
yeah,
I think I read that as a book.
yeah, but we'll get like the 10 little Indians of the Vision as one gets picked off each week, is what I assume we're going to get. Anything else on the Vision? I think this kind of could have been a lot bigger deal than it was, but because of everyone's injuries, starting with Seth, this whole thing got ruined. I have one other slight point here. Because of what happens here, Punk beats Jay at Saturday night's main event. I forgot that ever happened. I guess he lost it to Roman at Mania, I'm thinking. So it makes sense in that regard. But I also don't understand the timelines of the Unreal universe at all. But hindsight being 2020, and where they ended up with this, man, it seems like that Money in the Bank ladder match would have been a good time to give old LA Knight the nod. Any other thoughts on Punk ending up with the title here? Did you remember the run very well? I think it was around September, October in Utah that he did win. Your thoughts, Tom?
Only thing I don't know if they would have put this on the show would have been what the plan would have been with Seth if he wasn't injured. If they would have said, this is what we have planned going all the way through the end of the year or something like that. But who knows what it was. But yeah, I thought the whole segment there was pretty good. Yeah, they don't put what shows they were showing the matches out by. So you kind of had to remember, oh, this did happen. I forgot about that because I don't really read recaps that much anymore. So it was just something that I watched one time. That's oh, I forgot this happened.
Bird, did you happen to remember Punk winning and any of that fallout?
Yeah, again, I think it would happen quickly with all the injuries going on and they put it together. Again, I don't dislike Punk. I think a lot better of him now after episode one. I just think that run, they could have, I like a longer run, a little more meaningful. Maybe he's in that now, I believe, rather than the first go around. But there was just seemed like there was a lot going on. And again, with the timeline, that was confusing.
Yeah, and at the same time, in August, you had the Cody Cena belt exchange,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you want two that close together. And then, yeah, I don't know. I feel like both of those were not great runs the way they landed. I'm hoping this run for Punk is a little bit better. We got more Post Malone. Was it the same event, a different event? Was he in Utah the whole time? I don't
I
know.
forgot that he had Post Malone too. I forgot about that.
But we get another Post Malone cameo. I did think it was interesting this episode. Obviously, you don't know when you film it, but certainly this was the I think Saturday night main event before Cena's last one. And Punk's like, I don't know how many times I'm going to be in this city. And I don't know. It seemed like not the right season for some of his essing of his own D, him talking about his connection with the audience and all those kinds of things. I'm indifferent to Punk, but I did think he was smelling his own brand a little too much here. Anybody else notice that?
I will mention, stepping back to Post Malone, he made a funny comment. He said, when I was a kid, I used to watch all your stuff, or whatever his line was. And to me, maybe Post Malone is a whole lot younger than I'm guessing, but he looks a lot older, obviously. He probably is a whole lot younger than I'm thinking.
Yeah, probably that is a pretty funny line. He's 31.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'd have been way off.
Post Malone heat on this episode. I wasn't expecting that. The live segments were fun. Alexandra Daddario, not Alexandra Daddario, I don't know, but I remember her. I remember her coming up. I remember her original Twitter name before she got Liv Morgan officially. I did get a chance to meet her at the Performance Center a year before she debuted. I think when she was still dating Enzo, maybe towards the end of that weirdness. And in one of my fat phases, I did try to buy her a drink at a bar right before her debut. But at least I shot my shot, even if I was shooting blanks. But I like Liv Morgan a lot. I thought there were times that she wasn't going to quite get over. Like, obviously, there's the infamous title run with Rousey, which upon review, you probably could blame Rousey for, but she's really gotten over these last couple years here, and you could understand her being sad or worrying about keeping her spot, but she has been able to get injured multiple times in the last couple years and come back and take her spot, which I think is impressive. Your thoughts on Liv overall in these segments, Tom?
Yeah, it's pretty cool to show the beginnings of her character, which I forgot how little known she was back in NXT, because I remember when you first see her, people were saying maybe she was a Alexa knockoff or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool to see how she grew her own character and how it pretty much she's taken over as just Liv Morgan. It's not like an Alexa knockoff, just not another blonde on the roster or anything like that. These are turning into mini biography segments, I guess. But I like the whole title run and her losing the title to the injury, showing her shoulder being popped back in, which was pretty gnarly. But the whole behind the scenes of her talking about maybe losing her spot, maybe a little bit too dramatic, but that's Liv, though.
I think that's athletes and injury too, and you fought so hard to get there. When you know you've got 6 months on the shelf, I think it can be frustrating. Bird, your thoughts?
I wrote one big note for Liv the star. I think she's really coming to her own the last year or so. I like the progression, the farm stuff they showed. I thought that was weird and neat both. And I never knew a whole lot of that. It just seems like she's a plain living girl, even though she's not plain, obviously, but I think she wants to she's a homebody person as her actual person. But as far as the character, superstar.
Yeah, and I assume that's in Florida. Like I don't know. I don't think it's Claremont, but or Eustis or one of those areas around Orlando, Tampa area. But yeah, I think, was it Alexa that used to have the pig? Or okay. Alexa had the pig, but I think I remember some stuff with Liv on her Instagram back in the day when I used to follow. And let's not pass over Hooter alumni. Let's give her and put her in the Hooter Hall of Fame. Not literal Hooters, but the restaurant. A little lacking on some of that end, but
Hooters, their props. Saying it's a family restaurant.
Yeah, gosh. And actually, me and Tom met for the first time at a Hooters. That was our first meeting. And our second time we met up was at NXT. No, you didn't go to the NXT, huh? We met at Rumble. I went to NXT by myself.
Rumble,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so fun stuff from Liv, and then once again, a little goofy with the timelines here, but we see her get in that main at Survivor Series with Cena with the Cena screw job from all of the Judgment Day. But we don't really see Cena win the title. They acknowledge in one of the montages that he was like a Grand Slam winner, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit of the Dom match. Any thoughts on how they kind of jumped around there, Bird?
Yeah, just finishing up with Liv when they showed her return, giant reaction. That was real neat how they showed her kind of leading up to that backstage. Again, just some of that, whether put on or not, I'm not sure how much. Some of the backstage stuff I've really enjoyed just for the different aspect for Unreal. And for as long as the Cena run was, it got a lot of heat online. They could have put a couple more storylines or a little more details in there, but maybe not for time range where we're at, in my opinion.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you there, Tom?
I thought it was good. The whole, yeah, I would have liked to see more of the Cena Dom match, but what a sticking point was mostly of Liv coming back and then still being a major player in the game. But I thought it was good overall. But yeah, I think maybe these episodes there's probably like a director's cut, so you probably have a lot more that's not seen.
Time to play the game. I'm thinking that, yeah, my other thought as I'm watching this is like, are they doing a whole Cena thing that they're just cherry picking this footage from? And
Yeah.
that would make a lot more sense because it's just really sporadic and kind of half-assed for really they could have done a full Unreal season of Cena that last year. And I don't know that we got it last season because I didn't finish it. And I'm so confused with the Unreal timelines, but we didn't get a lot of the Rock and Travis Scott fallout, which I guess that's too real. That's in the real 30% we don't get to see. But yeah, still not a ton there. And I think any criticism of his run, that kind of has to be accounted for because that was a big, I think Cena's done a good job of not like blaming anyone for it, but certainly that kind of at least the first couple months of that run.
You don't really hear much about The Rock during the whole run at all yet.
Yeah, which and I think part of this was last Unreal season, but I faded out of that once again. I just didn't like the way the season was put together, and I'm enjoying these episodes, but I still once again we've ad nauseum the continuity of it is a little weird. So last event, DC, we're going to get, I think this Cena's credit. It was a good launching off point for Javon Evans, Oba, Sol, Ruka. I was not really familiar. Like, obviously, I could see Cody and Punk doing the title thing, but it's more interesting is the homage to Cena and Batista and Hogan doing it. Hogan playing it really goofy in his replay. And I thought some cool moments. We knew Bailey and Cena was in the crowd, but seeing a little bit more of that and their reactions, and then we get that questionable end. Bird, your thoughts on kind of all of that?
DC, I thought the whole weekend was well done. Probably one of my favorite parts of this episode. Of course, I'm a gigantic Bailey fan, is what it is. Just the interactions between her and Punk seem real, and I know they're buddies. I just like seeing that on the side. Little tidbits like that were really cool. Showed what a moment was that they're still fans, even though they're gigantic superstars. But as far as the scene at night that night, I was okay with it. I thought it went very well.
Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, I like the whole the Cena end where he was trying to explain why he tapped out. I think I heard him try to explain it in a separate interview somewhere, but yeah, I get it with the whole smiling and all that. The only thing I wish he would have done is maybe mouth the words like "I can't do this anymore" and then tapped out. But that's just me. But yeah, I like the whole Punk and Bailey being fans. That aspect, I was surprised that they weren't kind of harassed more being out in the crowd like that. But I'm sure they had a lot of security.
Well, they were in front of where the hard cam is.
Okay.
So there's usually security there.
Oh,
And
with all
it
the
was like
equipment.
and it was like a standing area rather than a fully seated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on that ending, I think just without the tap out, I think Cena smiling and passing out was enough. I think the tap out was too much. I think you see, and Cena's willing to admit it, a lot of this run, some of his decisions are going well, some are going not so great. But I think that's where somebody like a Triple H, or like I've always said with Cena, I think sometimes somebody needs to save him from himself because he's too giving. But
One
once
thing,
again,
though,
go ahead.
about that end is that it plays off well better on TV. But as far as the live crowd goes, they don't know about what's going on. So obviously, all they see is Cena tapping out, and then you get all the boos like that. But the way he did it is definitely made better on TV.
Yeah, I just think I get the story of the guy who never gives up, but it's like I think if he just passes out that way, that's as good. Bird, any other Monday morning quarterback thoughts on that finish?
Pretty good analogy you made on Cena's very giving, and I'll just say matches alone for the whole run. Of course, he went through the dog and pony show. Cena's very smart. He can have a good match with anybody. Is he going to have a 5-star match? In our books, I think he can have that kind of stuff, but it's got to be that style. I didn't think any matches in his run were bad. Very enjoyable. He can build them up. He knows what he can do. Doesn't do anything stupid. So I was okay, even with all the some of the criticism online and all that. I like the run personally. It was just quickly done, which I guess to get him pace again, they kind of had to do that. But I didn't dislike the whole run like a lot of people did.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting him going with I thought his entrance, like that original concept of just the white on black was like
Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah, I did just like to have seen there's that big rumor that he had that recorded music out there that I don't think is ever officially leaked. There's a lot of fake versions of maybe this was it and what that gear was like, but the kind of infamous story is that he was ready to turn heel and Vince just wouldn't let him. And it's I get what they were going for, but I just would have liked to have seen him in a run like that versus what we ended up with. But still, a lot of good moments. I don't want to discount that. I think in a different world, it could have been better. I just think by the time you're retiring, people want a certain thing. And so some of that was just that pressure too.
that
Anything
would
else?
be.
Go ahead.
All I was gonna say is that would be interesting to kind of. I don't know if you have an idea of how Vince would have handled Cena as a heel.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that, or even we don't know what that Travis Scott or The Rock thing was going to look like. But in my mind, when it first happened, you're thinking like a different version of the NWO. Let's go, and then
Yeah,
instead we get nothing. And once again, I'm gonna S his D in a different way, but it could have been cool to see like a Logan Paul and an LA Knight with him as opposed to what they did with the Vision in a different world. Let him bring some other guys along as a heel, as like a group that had some gravitas to it. That's what I thought we were gonna get with The Rock and Travis Scott. So I don't know. I think they did what they could under the circumstances, but certainly
I
I'd
do
have
like
liked
the
to have.
idea. I like the idea you brought up of having Logan in LA. I want LA Knight as the heel. That's one of my just
Yeah.
downfalls of my criticism of LA Knight. I think he's goofy. But this also comes from a Jey Uso fan who same criticism for him, which I get, but there's a little bit of both of that. But LA, I think he was hot early summer. He still is, but they just keep pulling the plug away from him.
Settle down, Yeet Man. All right, let's talk the big boss man. Let's take a trip down to Cobb County, Georgia. Dark Side of the Ring, season 7, episode 5. I think we had big expectations for this. What are your initial thoughts and rating, Bird?
Okay, I think this was a lot of mainstream talk. I was excited for it. I don't know if I was doing backflips. Now my rating is probably going to be a little lower than most. I was debating between two numbers. Let's go 6.5.
Oh,
Okay.
So I thought it was good. I'm not sure how dark. Very sad. A lot of really neat things. I'm not sure the true darkness, other than once we get to the pills and obviously the end matters. But the cameos were pretty cool. But I personally enjoyed the TNA stuff and last week's episode better ranked wise. But I think this one will get a lot of talk.
Tom, thoughts and a rating?
I'll give it a 0.5, only because I didn't know about like the stuff about his background and all that. So I thought it was all interesting just to get that perspective. But yeah, like Bird said, which what I was going to say too is that this wasn't really a dark side of anything of the Boss Man. It's pretty much just like a biography.
And it
Yeah,
seems like he's a very likable guy. There wasn't anything negative. Like I've never heard, at least me, heard anybody really bashing him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the show's got to be able to kind of get out of that dark side, like nomenclature. But I think early seasons, there were like so many, I don't know if controversies are the right word, but the plane ride from hell is like the big one where people started not participating as much or criticizing the show. And I think that has taken the fastball off some of these episodes. And so you end up with something like this. This was a very cursory view of the boss man. And yeah, you get his family. Yeah, you get a little bit more of Cornette. But this was an area where I would say probably WWE even does better than this. And I think that's what you want from a show like this, is to give you something you're not going to get from a WWE perspective. And once again, yes, we do get a little bit of the entry with Cornette, but outside of that and a little bit of his family, this could have been an episode of WWE Confidential in 2003 or something like that. At least we would have got Mean Gene or something. But yeah, I'm going to go 7. So I'll go right in between you guys. I like the subject matter, but definitely I felt this could have been better. So we're talking about the big boss man, real name, Ray Traylor. We get up the setup with some of the characters. We're going to hear from Cornette. We're going to hear from his widow, Angela. Now, I think in the Hall of Fame, it looks like there's 2 daughters, but it seems like only one daughter decided to participate in the documentary, best I can tell. Any highlights from like any of for me, Cornette's probably the best of this group, but any highlights for you on the side characters, Tom?
Yeah, I didn't know about his pre WWE days. So the whole segments about him with Cornette, I thought that was pretty cool to see. And yeah, that was pretty wild to see Cornette really getting so emotional like that, which I don't really watch him that much. So I don't think that's the first time I've ever seen him like that. I'm sure Bird can say otherwise, but I like that whole segment a lot.
Bird, your thoughts?
I think Blaha hit it on. You don't see Corny crying, and that kind of hit the nail on the coffin there. It's pretty deep when he started breaking into tears. The family, I actually absolutely love the accents on the daughter and the mom. So I thought it was they were interesting. I thought they came off pretty well, especially the daughter. I thought she did a great job. And me as a kid loving NWA, the whole character he had with Corny, Big Bubba, he was very green, but he just a big imposing dude, didn't have to do a whole lot. And I thought, other than him being mad at the money, I thought he had a little something building there. And I wish they could have kept that just a little bit longer. But hey, when you get the Hogan rub, you got to go to that.
Bono agrees. Yeah, I never knew who it was that didn't catch Corny, but certainly Big Bubba should have been able to catch him.
Yeah.
I did not know that he was. I did not know that he was Big Bubba first. So when he was Big Bubba in WU, it just seemed extra lame to me. When you got to see him as Big Bubba originally in WCW, was that a kind of cool nod to you, Bird, or how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I was hoping I didn't think we'd get a lot of that case, but they covered that pretty well. Just the whole Big Bubba Rogers character. I think they put a blanket how green he was. Of course, he had the Midnights, and Cornette was kind of molding him. He couldn't have asked for anything better there. I'm not sure if I'm speeding up a little bit, but the Starcade 87 scaffold match makes me laugh a little bit just because how somewhat cheap but funny when you had Ricky Morton up there just barely bag tags him and then runs away like he's scared to death. I thought that was funny.
Now, was Curtis Hughes supposed to be Slick Rick, Reverend Rick, and Big Bubba's love child? Curtis Hughes definitely seemed like he was running back Big Bubba later on. That's definitely something I noticed. I thought it was an interesting note from his widow that he didn't drink or party when he was younger. I don't know that we get a lot of partying or drinking, but we definitely get some pill abuse. I saw some stuff online about Vince using and abusing and killing the boss man like everyone else. I felt when we got to the dark side of the ring in this episode, and I'm going off the comments and some of the comments of the daughter, it's like, at what point is there any degree of accountability? You know what I mean? I understand that we didn't know then what we know now about pills and things like this, but by the time Kurt Hennig had died, it's pretty well known that wrestlers were dying and things like that by that point. I don't think we really know what killed him as far as big guy. I think he was 6'5", right? Berg is a shoot. Had to have been at least 6'3", but probably 50 is a shoot, I would think. I don't know. I feel bad, but I also thought there was like a need to paint him being like, I don't know if it was misused, but I think you see the other side of it, which is, okay, he didn't go on the road 300 days a year, so he got to spend more time with his family, but obviously his career was less fulfilled. And so you give one, you take the other. I don't know that there's a winner. He couldn't have felt good of his career at that time. What do you make of that dynamic, Bert, of like drugs, boss man, being on the road, less time on the road? I think it just is what it is, and people should be accountable and appreciative for the runs they had in some ways. I don't know if I'm being too weird about it, but what are your thoughts? I just hate the, oh, Vince killed another one. He put him on the road. It's like,
Yeah.
he took half his time off the road. He probably died more in that character than he died working 300 days a year.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there?
Yeah. Speaking late, boss man, we'll tune back into early, but some of those other characters were rough. I think they portrayed him as just being this big dude that was always in pain, and running that WWF schedule, guarantee he was in pain as far as that goes, and just went through it. Again, circling back to the Hogan run, he got that rub pretty quick. That's big time. I thought he did pretty well with that. That whole storyline I thought was good. And just one random, I thought anytime Gerald Briscoe makes a cameo, I just enjoy hearing him. Just think he's got some good insight, great voice, but just like seeing him still around.
Yeah, you could definitely tell he's starting to sound a little older this episode. I'd say the last 20 years he's always sounded the same, but he's definitely getting up there. Any comments from you there, Tom?
Yeah, I thought it seemed like they were staring into a dark side. I thought they were going to start blaming like the whole sport of wrestling that killed him, but they didn't really do that at all. And I thought they were going to blame Vince, but then they turned it towards the doctor. So they didn't really put it all on Vince. So I didn't really see any controversy that way on my end. So I thought it was more they played it on that doctor, which I had really not that much information about.
Yeah, I guess it was Benoit's doctor, and I guess it was a diet pill doctor, but then you could get
like he was prescribing anything.
But then they also said you could get pills in all 50 states, and I guess my issue is I can't even get Claritin D now because of all this. And it's like, now I got to go to the store every 15 days. So thanks a lot, assholes. But
That's
so
right.
like, I can appreciate it. I can appreciate that people go through these things, but the alternate is I had 2 hernias and a gallbladder taken out, and they tried to prescribe me ibuprofen. It's like, there's got to be a happy medium, and there's got to be accountability. Handle your I get it. I get it's an addiction, but it can be alcohol, it can be food, it can be women. Please, dear God, let it be women. But like, I don't know. I think sometimes it's be accountable. You see how Cena's walking right now. He was on the road, and like, he's not popping pain pills. That's why he's walking like Skeletor. And then you also see the WWE's lighten their schedule, and then you see people like Punk and Cody saying that it's not enough days because you have to kind of keep those bump calluses going. So I think over the last 30 years it's been put on Vince, but I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And it's not just wrestling, it's all sports. And sometimes it's just getting fooled. I just think it's more than one thing. And over the last 30 years, it's been I think too much has been put on Vince's shoulders that's unfair. Look at rockers. Half these rockers can barely walk around. I just think that there's a happy medium, and a little bit more, I'll get into it towards the end. But when they start talking about the Russo stuff at the end, and the daughter's like, oh, how did I go to school and tell my friends that my dad was on TV every week? It's like, yeah, had to have been terrible. I was like in high school then, and we all thought it was hilarious. So I just think in the attempt to make it a dark side, and we don't think that I don't get the impression anybody here thinks it was like the darkest of the darkest, but I could have done with a little less whining. This is whine side of the ring. So, couple high points. They talk about the gimmick chair with Dusty that wasn't gimmick. I thought that was a pretty cool deal. Bird, do you remember that, or do you remember that cage match with Hogan when it actually went down? Were you watching?
I was watching all the lead ups. I wasn't getting pay-per-views at that time because you had to wait till the video stores normally would get them because we weren't buying pay-per-views that early in the game.
I think that was Saturday night main event, but you probably
that was Saturday nights. Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The whole build up, just the blue cage. I think I mentioned the blue cage before. Big fan of that. Spinning back to what you were saying, it was just not just Vince's world. Everywhere was like the Wild West with these pills. And to me, just as a regular dude, it's wild that as famous as they were, they can just call this doctor or any doctor up and say, "Hey, I need 200 oxys or whatever you want, roids, anything else," and just they get it at their own hands. And here we are, got to show IDs and everything just to get Advil.
Yeah, no, wild stuff. Do you remember watching any of this? I feel like I saw the Saturday Night Main Event on a tape I rented, probably. What about you, Tom? Were you paying for the hotline and watching this thing at your uncle's house, or what happened?
What I remember used to doing for Saturday night's main event is always setting the VCR to tape it. I was never up that late for it, so it was always taping it and watching the next day. As far as that match is concerned, I don't think I remember watching it, but it was definitely, I don't remember the blue cage being that short either. I don't know. I think maybe that was a Saturday night's main event type deal, but the cage would seem a lot smaller than normal.
I think it's actually like they're all pretty realistically small. Like when you see them in person, I did think like it's probably 15-foot high from the outside, plus the ring, plus the turnbuckle. Briscoe called it a 20-foot superplex.
Yeah.
I don't remember really seeing that many superplexes or superplexes off the cage at that point. So I think that was a pretty big spot. Anything from you there, Bird?
Great move just in general. I know it's not some flippy floppy thing, just a superplex. I still pop for a superplex today. But at that time, that was gigantic. You got 300-pound dudes doing that. That's pretty spectacular, I thought.
Yeah, it reminds me of some of the later Big Show Brock spots or something at a different time and age, but for that time. What did you think of the Twin Towers? Did you remember much of them, Tom? They don't really talk about them a lot, but we see them on the Arsenio Hall show. But I thought it was a funny gimmick, and I don't know his stretches as far as Reverend Rick or Slick Rick or which Rick is which. But what did you think of the Twin Towers?
I remember the tag name. I just don't remember them tagging that much, but the whole segment, I was just always cracking up just to see Hakeem in the background just dancing aimlessly.
I feel like that height of that was around a WrestleMania 4 or 5, and then around 6 after the Warrior turn was when probably around that SummerSlam when Boss Man teamed up with Hogan, just off the top of my head. What did you think of Akeem and Boss Man together?
Probably didn't have a lot of legs. They were both big dudes, a little funny as a kid, a little goofy even as a kid. But to say it was bad, no, it just wasn't really overly memorable one way or another when we're looking at it in today's
I think
eyes.
we more remember Hakeem, the African Dream.
Yes.
Which is better, the Big Boss Man theme song or the Mountie theme song? What do you got, Bird?
Both are great. I will say, I even made a little note. The older I get, the more I can appreciate the Mountie. Just fantastic heel. But if I'm picking a theme song, I'm going to Mountie on that one. I think it's an all-timer. Not that Boss Man's is not, because it's excellent, but Mountie is pretty high on my list.
What about you, Tom? Where do you rank those two songs?
Yeah, the Mountie is probably more recognizable to me.
Yeah, and I would say obviously we're more hardcore wrestling fans. I would say to a casual person, maybe the Boss Man's a little bit more. And like I would say, like in an old 8-bit MIDI theme, maybe the Boss Man plays better. But the Mountie singing his own song, and they talk about the blow off match, but they don't really go into. Obviously, this isn't a Mountie episode.
Yeah.
But we got 3 episodes of Jeff Jarrett. We can get 2 Mountie segments. But eventually, whenever he got back over as the Intercontinental title, that was actually my first Saturday night main event versus Piper and the shockproof vest and that kind of thing. I think that was the first Fox Saturday night main event. But also, we didn't get anything on Nails. And I think Nails certainly isn't going to get his own dark side. But that thing with Vince, and he was pretty weird. I think that could have been a nice angle to explore that they didn't really touch on. Anything else in that first WWE, WWF run you want to put a bow on, Bird?
I'm not sure where the first or second overlaps. Is Al Snow after the first run, or is that when
that's the second? That's the last. Yeah, that's the last run. We'll get to that.
I'm
bad
pumped for
boy.
that.
Anything else from you there, Tom, on the first run?
No, pretty much covered it all. So I thought it was pretty neat.
Yeah, and it reminds me because they came back around the same time and we get into the Attitude Era. Bulldog went away from a while. He came back. I really liked that Bulldog character as he came back. I thought it had a little more punch than Boss Man. Corporate Boss Man in a vacuum didn't do a lot for me. But we find out, and I don't know how overstated this was, but I tend to believe it based on what they said, that the Boss Man was supposed to have a little mini Austin run and he missed his spot. And I don't know how you blame anyone but Boss Man for that. That seems like a big up there.
I loved how the reason he was backstage talking to Undertaker. I loved that. Just hanging out.
Yeah, he's going to be hanging out in a few. I would have liked to have seen a better Boss Man. I don't know that this Boss Man was good enough for more than like a Raw blow-off match with Austin, but maybe a No Way Out or something. What did you think of this Boss Man when he came around Attitude Era Boss Man, Tom?
Yeah, the only thing that was really memorable was him being hung. But other than that, everything else you don't really remember about his corporate boss man run that much. Yeah, that's the only thing that really stands out was just him being hung.
Tell me how much you remember about the Boss Man being hung, Tom. what locker room were you in when that happened? I'm gonna play back the tape, but and it's not even the first episode that you've talked about hung Mounties even in a previous season. But so my downsides of this were Vince Russo being here. Like, there's got to be like a 3-episode more on him. And then Terry Runnels was just kind of out of nowhere. I get she was maybe friends with them, but she was kind of talking in present tense about people being on the road 300 times a year. They're not anymore. I get that they were. I don't know what planet that was, what clip, if it was even for this show that they pulled her, but put her in the New Jack episode, but I don't know that this was the episode for her.
Thoughts, because it was kind of random and it was just a real small bit there. How close were they, number one, which whatever, but I don't think she really should have been involved there personally, but
might as well brought Awesome Kong back for another commentary.
She was
I thought it was Missy Hyatt for a second when they first showed her. It was like,
Bird will draw you a map, connect all the dots, and show you the differences. So yeah, this is where it is funny because I think some of me and Corny's sentiments overlap sometime, but I think the Pepper stuff was very memorable. I think the Big Show funeral, as goofy as it was, like when you think about the worst things, I think of the Mae Young hand, the Katie Vick. This is like the better version of that. It's maybe just inside of the Pillman stuff, but it was out there. But the Pepper stuff was funny, and Boss Man played it well. I think they had a dog food match before the Roman Reigns dog food match. I think this was the first actual Hell in the Cell. Is that accurate, Bird? Or were there others? Or was it the first Mania Hell in the Cell? I don't know I don't know the lineage of that, but it was definitely one of the first. Facing Taker at Mania is a big deal. I get the hanging thing. I was never for any of the crucifix, the hanging. None of that stuff was my jam, but outside of that, some of this wasn't terrible. What was your take on all of this version of him in these characterizations, Bird?
What I loved about this episode, just the random reactions to Pepper. Al Snow, I've met him a couple times. I think he's just a dude. He's just an old school wrestling guy. Funny. I thought how he broke that down. He was kind of like, I'm stuck in this storyline, just make the best of it. And he did. But one of the all-time segments and storylines that negatively looked at, we kind of laugh at, but how did they get by doing that and got the approval? That was my kind of first thoughts on that. But the whole Pepper bringing that up, that was great that they put it on there for me, just for TV purposes.
Yeah, I'll give Vince Russo credit for that. I didn't need to see him this episode, but I'll give him credit.
It's professional wrestling, bro.
It's a TV show, bro. It's not wrestling. I had to book a TV show. Tom, your thoughts?
Was Russo there when Boss Man missed the spot and he goes to Boss Man and all he says is, bro?
Matt Riddle would be proud.
Yeah, right. I think that was during the time I wasn't really watching wrestling that much, so I don't remember the whole dog food thing at all, really. So that was, I think I remember reading about it, but I never saw it. And the whole casket stuff too, I never saw that. So I remember just seeing the clips on Twitter and all that. So it was kind of cool just to see them talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, and ultimately we get his heart attack. I think it was at 41. So definitely died really young. That's tough. It did seem like he had kind of sobered up and got off the pills, but maybe was in a lot of pain too. So ups and downsides of those pills, did it spike his heart rate or who
The wife did
knows?
mention a quick second that his whole family had a history of heart problems.
Yeah.
Like a quick second before they cut to another segment.
Yeah, he was a big dude. It seemed like he had lost a little bit of weight at the end, but still a pretty big dude.
I didn't know the part on his daughter doing the actual CPR. I thought that was pretty rough segment there on her breaking that down.
A little wild. Once again, these are real shows and terrible circumstances. A lot of respect for the people, but just her description of tasting her father's last breath or something, that was definitely, that's a little wild. That maybe pull that one back.
And 41 years old surprised me, even though we kind of knew that. Just a fairly long career for being that young, but 41 was like, whoa, considering we're older than that. I was like, okay.
Yeah, Finn Balor's older than that. I thought it was a little weird reaction from the daughter, like being like, oh, because her coworkers thought he's cool. Now it's cool. It seems like she was a little, God bless her, but a little too concerned about what her friends thought in high school. And obviously her dad had a lot of impact, but cool to see him ultimately inducted. I love the boss man. Really enjoyed him as a character and miss him. So I just would have liked to have seen a little bit of a better episode, I think. But other than that, lots of positive thoughts his way. Any wrap up on your side on the boss man bird?
I'll touch on a random character. Some of those bad characters, that guardian angel gimmick. Oh, that might be bottom barrel for me as far as his characters, because I thought that was rough. And they just barely touched on that, but that was not good.
When you think of the WCW ones, the only one who had it worse was maybe Beefcake, had the most dog characters ever, but some of those guys, it was rough.
Yeah.
Tom, any wrapping up thoughts on Boss Man for you?
Boss Man as a guardian angel reminds me of Sergeant Slaughter. Wasn't it? He joined the Iraqi or something like that. But looks like the Boss Man Undertaker Hell in the Cell was the fifth one.
Oh, wow.
The first one was in Bad Blood between Taker and Shawn Michaels.
That's what I was thinking.
Great
what
match.
were the other ones in between there?
The second one was on a Raw. It was Taker and Stone Cold versus Mankind and Kane. Third one was Taker and Mankind. And then the fourth one was Mankind and Kane.
Okay, so this is after hucking off the side of the cell. So I think they're just thinking they got to do something big. Obviously, he wasn't hanging. Nobody could have really thought he was hanging, but he did. And I think he did a good job of selling it. He did a good, as good as anybody can do.
Like you could tell it's
Next week, we got the Renegade. Any pre-thoughts on the Renegade bird?
This could go 20 different directions, and I'm totally here for it. I think it's going to be weird, wild. Could be some bashing going on. I don't think we know a whole lot other than what we saw on TV and the stories we've heard. I'm looking forward to this one.
Tom, what about you? Did you know anything about the Renegade?
As far as background is concerned, no. All I would know about the Renegade is a WCW time where I thought that was, that's not the Warrior. I would imagine this would be your trash can episode.
Yeah, for me, very funny. More loaded in the trash.
And like maybe last week got okay ratings. I haven't dug numbers. I can't imagine Renegade's going to get great ratings, but what do I know?
I think this is the type of show I think we want to see. Maybe proofs in the pudding. We'll see how the episode goes, but this is an area that we have no clue where it's going to go in the background. And so that leaves me excited. I'm a big Warrior fan, so I plan on shitting on him, Hogan, Bischoff, all of them for thinking they could just easily replicate one of our treasures of our time, the Ultimate Warrior. But I feel like this is going to be Hogan thought he made the Warrior and he could just make the Warrior again and fell on his ass. But we'll see. Right? Looking forward to next week.
Magic question. Does Russo come back again?
Oh, God, I hope not, bro. Give
Bro.
me a couple weeks, bro. Hey, I look forward to it though. Thanks again, guys, and tune in Sunday for House of the Dragon, and we'll be back next week with the Renegade.
Good deal,
Take it easy,
fellas. That's
guys.
fun.